You know that talking about Metallica and San Francisco Symphony S&M2, we are hearing a very special Virgin Rock Live on our radio to celebrate the album, documenting the show. So for all the people who weren't there, we will try to make them feel the symbiosis between you and the AVP's orchestra you were playing with. How did Metallica and classical music meet? I know that it's a difficult question, but there are two words closer than people could think.
Yeah. This all started from Michael Kamen. It was Michael Kamen's original source of inspiration to approach us and say, hey, let's do something with an orchestra. Let's collaborate. Let's create a huge sound with Metallica and a symphony. And so we had met Michael Kamen because he initially came in to score the strings on Nothing Else Matters in 1991. And that's how we initially came into contact with him. And so when he came and asked us if we were interested, of course we said yes. And then we went into a huge discussion about the similarities between heavy metal and classical music. And I mean, it's, for me, it's really obvious. The drama, the dynamics, the peaks, the valleys, the volume levels, the intensity, the range of emotion. It's all very similar to heavy metal, particularly the drama. The drama of heavy metal and the drama of classical music, very, very similar. The dynamics, from soft to loud, there being a part in the music where all the instruments come in and just kind of play together to hammer a musical theme through. I mean, that's real similar to what heavy metal is all about. It's just like getting a musical theme and just hammering it through and just like beating everyone over the head with it.
And about that, and about how challenging was, and every challenge is a good thing for a band, even when 20 years ago you played with an orchestra for the first time. But let's talk about when you played on a non-Metallica song with the orchestra. It was Alexander Mossel of the Iron Foundry. It was the exact moment where we heard what you were saying us just some seconds before, and what Michael Tilson Thomas said about heavy metal and classical music. And that composer Alexander Mossel was defined once from critics like disrupting, like something avant-gardistic, futuristic. It's what happened on stage with Metallica in that moment of the show. Yeah.
That's a really, really interesting way to look at it. Maybe the Iron Foundry was composed with a band like ours in mind. Maybe Prokofiev or Moselov was looking for a sound like ours. It just hadn't been created yet. That's what I like to think. These composers were trying to capture a sound that was just it wasn't discovered yet, and I believe that the sound that they were looking for was heavy metal. And the Iron Foundry, it's interesting because it has a real heavy sort of feel to it and a really heavy demeanor to it, which is very similar to what we do ourselves. And when we joined the orchestra and played it, we actually had to let ourselves be conducted by Edwin Outwater and Michael Tilson Thomas, and that in itself was a little nerve-wracking because when the conductor points at you and you're like but yeah, I mean, that was Michael Tilson Thomas's way of drawing a thread between certain eras of classical music and certain eras of heavy metal, us being a certain era. And I think it was a really, really great way to show that, without classical music, a lot of our music that we have today just would sound completely different. I mean, classical music is the foundation for so many other styles of music. And I believe, heavy metal is right in there.
Yeah, even with the Shessian Suite, who is about those people living in the past, but with a lot of similarities to metal musician, because they used to imagine, they used to as a vision of entertaining forms like a band like yours. So it was very interesting to hear those director tell us how much sometimes we don't understand about our past, and we make like divisions between musical genres, but they are very closer than what we can imagine. And I read that your sound engineer, Greg Fidelman's vision was all about breaking down the wall which people think could stand between orchestra and rock band. And one of the songs that revealed him it was true in the show, and tell me if the song is the right one, was The Memory Remains. Do you feel the same about that song?
Well, it's amazing because what the audience's interaction on that song, along with what the symphony was playing during the audience interaction, it created a moment where everyone, and we encouraged the audience to sing along. And during that sing along part, the orchestra did the most amazing thing. This whole musical interlude where they're taking the parts and just stringing out with arpeggios and different tempos and all these different contrapuntal parts. And then you add the audience in with their singing, and at one point it really sounds like everyone in the venue is connected and one big gigantic orchestra. And I'm not sure if that's the answer to your question, but that's the one thing about The Memory Remains that really stood out for me. And yeah, it was a moment where everyone was contributing to the music, and there was no boundaries, there's no barriers, and it was a beautiful moment, at least for me.
And